Norfolk Public School Board of Education meeting is being called to order. Roll call.
Terry Bauer.
Here.
Cindy Booth.
Here.
Brenda Carhart.
Present.
Beth Shasha. Whoa, that's not the right. I'm just reading my list there, and it's an old list. Steve McNally. Tom Stanton.
Present.
Dr. Patty Goobles.
Here.
Okay, did I get everybody? All members are present, and we do have a quorum.
This is a legal meeting of the Board of Education as advertised by the means specified in board policy. A complete copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the boardroom for your review. A copy of the agenda is available at the desk of the recording secretary. Please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, first item is Finance and Facilities Report. Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Total amount of claims to be approved on the consent agenda by specific fund are listed below. General Fund, $291,294.92. Geez. Nutrition Fund, $260,068.70. Cooperative Fund, $2,829.06. Subsidiary Fund, $1,851.64. Depreciation Fund, $28,313.28. Special Building Fund, $599.95. Senior High Activity Fund, $52,674.13. Junior High Activity Fund, $1,923.57. Student Fee Fund, $501.41. All of these claims were reviewed earlier by the Finance and Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Eric. Next item is public comment and communication. This is a time where the meeting and the public may request to address the board. According to state law, if you wish to comment, you must identify yourself, including your address, the name of the organization you represent, and the topic you wish to address. Public comment cards are located in the media table in the back of the room. Please pick up a card and provide the required information if you plan to speak. Each individual's comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and a total cumulative time for the public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Please note that the board cannot discuss or act upon matters that are not listed on the agenda. Therefore, board members will not respond to your comments or questions. If you wish to request that an item be placed on a future board agenda, you may contact the superintendent or her assistant during normal business hours. Also note that concerns related to school personnel need to be addressed to the superintendent using the approved district protocol. Individuals who make false, defamatory, or slanderous statements during public comments may be held legally liable. Slanderous comments are not protected just because they are made at board meetings. Additional procedural guidelines are available at the media table. Is there anybody who'd like to speak?
Esteemed members of the school board, my name is Kay Francavilla, and I'm a taxpayer and citizen of Norfolk, as well as a proud graduate of Norfolk Public. I'm here today to express my great concern regarding the current state of NPS school system. Thanks in part to a failed grading system known as target-based grading, our school system is ranked 113th out of 182 school districts, according to School Digger ranking system. We are graduating students that are unable to read, write, or do basic math. In fact, I had passed out to you some reports I pulled off this morning, and this is from the Nebraska Department of Education. I gave you copies of several schools, and I'm only going to go over Norfolk's quickly. You can see so if you want to look at the first sheet that says Norfolk Public Schools, the goal, this is for reading, of the state was 46.21. Norfolk got a score of 40. The math was 44.84. Norfolk got 35. And science is even more abominable, 51.09 versus 42.50. If you look at these other schools, and you can read those at your leisure, you will see that our scores are much worse than the other schools. And these are similarly sized schools, by the way. Our teachers are quitting our school system in alarming numbers. In fact, today you will be voting on 6 teachers that have submitted their resignations. 3 of them are special ed teachers. We are in crisis mode, in my opinion. Thankfully, I have great confidence in you, our newly elected school board, that you will select a new leader for our school district that will be able to restore our school system back to its previous proud tradition as one of the top school districts in the state. We are the citizens of Norfolk, and we are counting on you. Thank you.
I am Jan Haberman, and I live here in Norfolk. First, I want to congratulate Mrs. Thompson on her new position as a superintendent. Congratulations, and I hope all things go well in your new job. And I would like to comment on the starting of the process of hiring an interim superintendent. This is a school board decision, and each of you is a very important member of this committee to hire this school board member. So you need to all be totally involved. As you know, I have commented before about doing things in committees. This is one area where all 6 of you need to be on the committee. So if something happens, everyone knows and is able to discuss. This is very important to me, and I think to the public. Okay. So all of you have a stake in this, and all will be affected. And there are a lot of people who are affected by this choice. Teachers, children, the city, and we want everyone to be involved. And nothing left out. Even the questions on the, I looked up the NSAB and how they do things, and part of it was a committee decides on, can select questions. Well, that should be done by everyone so that you all have a stake. I'm hoping that even right now, before you get to this further on, you're already thinking about what you desire to see in a superintendent. What are the strengths the superintendent should have? Where do you want to lead the school system here in Norfolk, Nebraska? And just as Kay just said, academics is one of the areas that she's concerned, and so am I. So I'm asking that everyone, all 6 of you, be on the committee. Nothing done in a committee of 3. There's always closed sessions that you can talk about if you need to do so without the public knowing about it. So I thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Anybody else like to speak? We'll move on to the consent agenda. The first item, minutes of previous meetings. The March 10th meeting minutes are attached. Second thing, personnel. And we have contracts for approval. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. I have several contracts for your consideration this afternoon, starting with Cassandra Glaser, first and second grade teacher for Lincoln Montessori, Chloe Hintz, fourth grade teacher at Jefferson Elementary, Amber Kittle, English language learner teacher at Norfolk Junior High, Brian Mendlick, PE teacher at Norfolk Senior High, Emily Merkel, kindergarten teacher at Lincoln Montessori, Rihanna Specht, 9th through 12th grade math teacher at Norfolk Senior High, Paige Stenka, K4 special education teacher, location to be determined. Curtis Stevens, 9 through 12 instrumental music or band teacher, Norfolk Senior High. Andrea Williams, 4th grade teacher at Woodland Park Elementary. And Williams Heston, PE teacher at Norfolk Junior High.
Resignations. Dr. Thompson.
I also have several resignations for your consideration, but there are less resignations than contracts. Elizabeth Baber, 5th grade teacher at Norfolk Middle School. Amanda Gassell, 2nd grade teacher at Jefferson Elementary. Tyrone Hubbard, special ed teacher, Norfolk Middle School. Michaela Kleintobe, 1st grade teacher, Washington. Kendra Learman, special education teacher, Norfolk Senior High. Catherine Steskel, special education teacher, Norfolk Junior High. And Dr. Jamie Jo Thompson, superintendent.
And claims. Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. Attached are the claims. These claims have been reviewed by our Finance and Facilities Committee. There is one conflict statement that needs to be read before voting today.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a potential conflict. Out of an abundance of caution, I hereby declare a potential conflict of interest and abstaining from voting on claim number 383 for the month of March in the consent agenda for this meeting. That claim was for registration for the Open Meetings Act workshop that's coming up soon. I've signed and filed this written disclosure with the Secretary of the Board. It is my intent to vote on all other remaining items listed on the consent agenda. My vote on the remainder of the consent items should not be taken as a vote one way or the other on the item which I have identified or any of the matters set forth therein or related thereto.
I'd just like to, as we approve the resignation for Dr. Thompson, I just wanted to thank her for the last 12 years. I believe that Dr. Thompson has given her heart and soul to this school. I believe that she has made the best decision for the students. She didn't have an agenda. She was looking out for the students. She made the best decision with the information she had at the time in the last 12 years, with the time with the staff she had to consult with, or administration, or the resources she had to work with. She made the best decision with all those different variables. And I appreciate that. She looked out for students, and I thank you for that.
I would also just like to thank you, Dr. Thompson. Let's see, I was on the board for 6 years, so I guess we've known each other for about 11 years now. And what I see is, number one, that Norfolk Public School District is a different district now than it was when I first went on the board. Different in many ways. Our student population is very different than it had been previously, and even different than it is today. What I saw happening over the time that I was on the board and the last 4 years that I wasn't on the board are all of the changes that occurred under your leadership. There are too many to list, but if you consider all of the improvements to our facilities that were made without a bond issue, that in itself is rather incredible. I saw implementation of an instructional model. I saw implementation of PBIS, MTSS, improvements to alternatives for education, the development of a freestanding preschool, which is one of the best, I think, in the state of Nebraska at this point for all of its collaborative efforts with private preschools. I could go on, Jamie Jo, but I guess what I would say in summary is you are definitely leaving Norfolk Public better than you found it. Thank you for that, and best wishes as you move on in this next adventure.
Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Action items, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the purchase of a 2024 F-350 from Courtesy Ford. Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. As discussed during our Finance and our Facilities and Transportation presentation at our last meeting, our maintenance division is in need of a new truck. This will be used for pushing snow, hauling equipment, pulling trailers. My team has visited with local dealers and evaluated 3/4 ton and 1 ton truck options from Chevy, Ram, and Ford. Courtesy Ford currently has a 1 ton F-350 that we felt best met our needs. They have matched the state purchasing contract discount for an amount of $46,262. This price is only good until the end of March, which is why I'm bringing it to you now. I recommend that we move forward with purchasing using funds from the Vehicle Maintenance Depreciation Fund, as that's what those funds were designated for. Did I answer any questions?
I'll motion to approve the purchase of a 2024 Super Duty F-350 XL from Courtesy Ford for $46,262.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Steve and a second by Patty. Is there any other discussion?
How many pickups do you currently have in your fleet?
It's a good question. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. We know we are down 2 trucks from what we have had. We had one that was in an accident that was not replaced, and one that was just so old 2 years ago it was sold. So that's why we're adding
Thank
to
you.
the fleet.
Eric, I think last meeting you talked about the warranty on the vehicles. Could you just kind of restate what that is?
We were pretty adamant on the bus warranties. They had some really nice warranties out there. The truck warranties are similar to all across the board, 3-year, 36,000 mile.
Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
7.2, discuss, consider, and take action for the possibility of hiring the Nebraska Association of School Boards to complete an interim superintendent search to be considered.
I make a motion to approve the hiring of the Nebraska Association of School Boards to complete an interim superintendent search for the 2025-2026 school year.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion, what we're talking about is some information I sent to the board Tuesday from the Nebraska Association of School Boards. We currently belong to that association, so I reached out to them. They do this for many schools. I see they're doing it for Winside right now also. But we're looking at doing just an interim for the next school year. I feel that the interim is the best way to go because we're on such a short timeline, and Dr. Thompson's last day is June 30th. It doesn't give us a lot of time to do a full, complete search for a superintendent. A full process takes many months with many meetings to get input from staff, to get input from the community, to get input from the school board. It's a much more drawn-out process. Also, by doing an interim, it gives us time for more people to apply, because right now most people have signed their contracts for next year, and they can't, I don't know if their schools would let them out of their contracts to come be an interim. I think that reaching out to the Nebraska Association of School Boards is a good idea because they would be more fair, it'd be more transparent, have more of equality because they know this landscape, they know who is available, they could maybe vet them, make sure they've got their superintendent certificate, do a little vetting process, and it doesn't look like a school board member is just reaching out to somebody. Anybody, whether it be an internal candidate or an external candidate, would go through the NASB. This cost $2,500 to do an interim search. Any discussion, thoughts, guys, after you've read it? What are you thinking?
I think you answered my question. So if somebody, locally would be interested in the position because it's been advertised or it's been, they know that we're losing our superintendent, they still have to go through an application through NASB. I think, I'm understanding that right?
Yes, you're
Okay.
correct.
So that's answered my question. Thank you.
I think that we are kind of like, there's a time constraint feature here, and I think the NASB is the best solution for us to help us guide us through that period to get this interim in, because I feel like probably the people that we would be looking at would be Nebraska local people anyway, and like you say, they do know the landscape the best, so I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, in reading through all their stuff, you know, they maintain a list of retired and local superintendents that literally just serve in an interim role, and I think that's good. Also, I was pretty impressed with kind of how they outline the process, not only just for the interim, but also for if we chose to use them, and that's not what we're deciding today, but if we chose to use them for the superintendent position, there was a lot of transparency with the public, and I thought that's something that would be really, really important for us to do right now.
Thoughts, Terry? You have anything to add?
I liked the process. Everybody kind of spoke for everything I was thinking of. I like the fact that there's no rush, that we can really pick the right permanent superintendent for the district.
My thoughts would be to look at different search firms, maybe like August, and see if we want to go with NASB or if we want to do RFPs and maybe put it out to see what other search firms come to us, what the prices are, what they have to offer, and then pick a search firm and then go through with them the complete process of many meetings and much input from community and school board and staff and teachers to pick the right superintendent. And that way it kind of gives, by starting then, it gives other superintendents or maybe people that are looking for jobs enough time to know about us, to apply, and we get the best candidate, which I think we all want. So at this time, I'm off the subject, this time we're just talking about interim. And if we would hire them, then they would want a meeting with us, NASB, because they would want to identify the priorities that all 6 of us want for an interim superintendent. They'd want to identify dates for a board to review resumes later as they bring them to us. They would help us with interview questions from the board, interview schedules, help us with the contract and the compensation is what our next meeting would be with NASB. Sherry Backer is who we would work with. And $2,500 to do interim.
I thought that was a very reasonable price for the services that we'll be receiving throughout this process.
Yeah, and just to be transparent, they would charge mileage, but, you know, just so the public knows that would be part of it.
Right. And that's 70 cents a mile. It's federal rate. And they come out of Omaha. Lincoln. Is there if we approve this, then the next thing we need to do is schedule a meeting with the NASB, hopefully sometime next week.
Yeah, and I would say the sooner we can do that, the better, because again, we're on a very short time frame. So we need to get them started on the process.
I agree, and we're not the only district looking for an interim.
And that will be an open meeting. It'll be a work session with all the board. So we need at least 3 days, right, for the paper to post it? Kellen? Preferably more. So we need to make that decision preferably today or tomorrow, when our meeting next week can be.
So Sherry had suggested the 31st. Evidently, that does not work for everyone. Is that why we're thinking of another date, or?
That's at night, yeah.
Yeah, when does your meeting start I see you're going on Monday night to the Open Meetings Act.
It is from 6:30 to 8.
Okay.
So we can maybe meet at 4.
Yeah, I can't be here Monday. Is Monday the 31st? I've got a prior commitment for the 31st, but if it could be like Thursday or.
You could listen Zoom on Monday. Yeah.
That would be perfectly fine to listen in, and I could also even maybe give you some input on some of the things that I would have for priorities.
I just want to clarify, you could only listen, you could not participate legally.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that.
Does Monday work for you, Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
At 4.
4 p.m.?
I have to get out of school. So,
What about you, Tom? Does 4?
I'll make whatever work. It's
Okay,
fine.
well, I'm getting ourselves. We need to vote on this first to see if we want to hire them. So please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you, guys. I think this is a good step forward in getting an interim and getting it filled for the year so that we can do a complete, full search next year in the fall. So with that, can we tentatively schedule a meeting, 4 o'clock here on Monday, the 31st?
It'd be a special meeting then for the sole purpose of
Meeting with Sherry Backer to discuss our priorities for an interim superintendent. The board can get questions answered. If you've got any questions about how this should work, please bring them for Sherry too. We'll set dates, maybe not, we'll talk with Steve too about dates, but identify priorities, talk about interview questions for the board that we would have for our interim interview questions. And they can kind of give us a schedule as to, when they're going to post it, when they might have candidates back to us, when our interviews could be maybe rough, last 2 weeks in April. I don't know when candidates would start coming in, but with Sherry's guidance, we could tentatively set up some timetables.
and we'll be able to go to our Open X meeting at 6:30 then. I mean, it's not going to take that long.
I would check with Sherry, Brenda, because everything you just listed that we need to accomplish,
That's a lot.
I don't think we would be done in enough time for people to get to a 6:30 meeting. Did she give you an indication of length?
No, she did not. She just told me she was available all day Monday, the 31st.
But just thinking about the discussion that needs to take place, I would be concerned that that might not be enough time.
2 hours might not be enough time?
Yeah.
Oh,
You could also check with her to see if there's any pre-work that we could do as board members.
Brenda, I may have to do Zoom too. I'll be traveling home from Minneapolis that day.
I will check with Sherry too and get back to all of you on time and what pre-work we can do. Maybe she can send out a survey or something, ask us questions. But then it needs to be discussed in an open session. We can't make any decisions.
Do you want us to set the meeting or wait until after you talk to Sherry?
Why don't you set the meeting, and then if we need to change it, I'll let you know.
And I think it's,
Okay. Will we have Kellen for notes? Any other discussion on plans going forward?
In that list of the things that they said that they did, can we get that information as soon as we engage with them? Will you send us the list of questions, interview questions ahead of time, or you just don't? Oh, I thought it said in there that they had suggestions on.
They maybe have samples, but we decide what questions. Or maybe you could be thinking about questions that you'd want to ask Steve and then send those forward and they could. It's like previous, from my understanding, is we'd ask the same questions to every candidate so that there's no discrepancies. So we'd all have a question, we'd all ask candidate number 1 this question, then we'd all ask candidate number 2 the same questions so that it's consistent information. So. But yes, I will. Yeah, and think about questions yourself and ask Sherry too. Okay. Future meetings. Could have one on the 31st, and then the next regular meeting of Board of Education will be held Monday, April 14th at 5:30. The second monthly meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Monday, April 28th at noon. All components of these meetings will be held at the MPS Central Administration offices and will be open to the public unless the executive session is needed in order to protect the interests of the district or the reputation of an individual. Meeting adjourned.